Ninjago is a 2011 show that centers around a group of ninja thus to defeat such amazing villains as racist snakes, a racist octopus, and who could forget the son of a god possessed by the incarnation of darkness. It's one of my favorite shows because of how insane it is and how surprisingly well thought out its history is. Before I begin, I would like to make the announcement that Ninjago is an anime. And that is my favorite anime. The show gets really good around its 4th and 5th seasons, but before I can get to that, I have to do the unthinkable and review the pilot episodes. Episode 1 opens with this dude named Wu going up to a blacksmith shop run by these two people, Kai and Nia. So Kai is a horrible blacksmith. It's immediately revealed that he is horrible, and Wu absolutely destroys him as a result. So then after their conversation, and Wu disappearing, the skeletons arrive. And there's no music, which actually builds tension really well. But it is immediately ruined because these two skeletons, Cruncha and Knuckle, have a really annoying exchange. So Kai goes out to fight these skeletons, and it really shows how horrible the animation was in this episode. It is so bad. So the skeletons are there looking for this map, and the way they find it actually brings up a really good point. Basically, if something is done in a stupid way, and it could have been done like a way easier way, then it's not really a problem, it's just a joke. And Ninjago does that a lot, actually. So then it is revealed that the leader of the skeletons is this 4-armed skeleton man named Samukai. And he's really cool. He's like General Grievous, where he's not really a serious character or anything. He's just really cool, and I wish they utilized him more later in the show. Okay, so they say that this guy named Garmadon said to take Nia. And why would he do this? Later, there's a time travel episode where they go back to this episode, and him taking Nia is what led to Kai becoming a ninja and him being defeated. So it's just not really a good plan. And there's no point to even stealing her. It doesn't do anything. So Garmadon takes Nia and they do the first long before time had a name thing. And it's actually used really, it's really cool the way they use it. And because Wu explained all this, Kai agrees to train as a ninja. If nothing else, just to save Nia. So they go to the monastery, and Wu starts to train him, and especially in the newer seasons, Dragon's Rising, there are a ton of cool callbacks to this part. It's really cool. But why is there no music as the course is appearing? The training course appears, and there's just no music. What? This part also kind of highlights how Wu is really clearly based on Yoda in this episode. It's really obvious in this part especially. Oh, also Kai sucks at training, and also just like being a normal, decent person. And the problem with these episodes is that they really should have been longer. Like, it maybe like a kind of a movie. Because it's really rushed, especially Kai's training is really rushed. And his final test is him fighting some other ninja, which is actually a pretty cool fight. Like thematically, because the animation is still booty. But the other ninja are revealed to be Wu's students, his other students. And the 3 students are Cole, Jay, and Zane. And Wu, because he's a cool guy, he decides to give them some new outfits to show their elemental powers. And it's the only time he shows his elemental power of creation, which is revealed later. It doesn't really say that he has an elemental power here. But in season 8, I think, is when they say that he has the elemental power of creation. But he just uses it to change the color of their outfits, which is kind of dumb. Oh, also Cole's still black. I think Jay is a little bit too into the idea of Kai having a sister. Uh, he's just, he's kind of stupid in this episode. So even though they don't have the map, they go to the Caves of Despair to get the first golden weapon. Maybe it's because they saw that the skeletons were going there. But on the way, they tell their backstories, and the backstories actually surprisingly line up well with the flashbacks from seasons 8 and 9, which is really surprising considering it's a kids' show. So in this episode, Kai is supposed to be like a loner or something. I don't really know, and it really shows how much he grows between the pilots and season 1, which I think there's like 3 or 4 months that pass between them. But in season 1, he already values his team as a family, so character growth. So the skeleton Knuckles tooth falls out actually in this episode, but then just like comes back magically. Which like, does that mean that he's a child? Did a child die and make this skeleton? Why is he just as tall? This doesn't make sense because Crunch's tooth is already out and it hasn't grown back. I just don't understand. It doesn't make sense. So they steal the map back and go to where the site of Quakes is. And the way they learn Spinjitzu is actually kind of cool. It's a little bit rushed, but it's pretty cool and a little bit funny. And yeah, in the pilot episodes, Zane does his sensing thing way too much, and it isn't cool or funny or anything. So they take the scythe, and when they are running away, there is a dragon that was guarding it. And the dragon designs didn't look good whatsoever. They looked really bad, honestly. So, against Sensei Wu's wishes, Kai uses the scythe somehow, even though he's the fire ninja and the scythe has earth power. It doesn't make sense at all. And then it cuts to later when Samukai is talking to Garmadon and saying they failed and didn't get it. And basically, Garmadon's voice is very good. It is like some of the best voice acting in the entire show. Very intimidating. I like it a lot. So that is the end of the first pilot episode. It's a pretty good episode by itself. It's just like a 6 out of 10. It rushes through some important parts, but it's also very epic and a little funny. Definitely they didn't find their comedic, I don't know how to say it, but they didn't really find it until later. In season 1, it's pretty funny, mostly because of the voice acting. So pilot episode 2, they somehow get lost, even though they have a map. So I don't really understand how they're lost. And Sensei Wu starts yapping about the tornado creation and how like it's some all-important, powerful thing. And he says it's the most powerful Spinjitzu move, but then they only use it like 3 more times in the entire series. Like 17 seasons using it 3 times. And so then they finally arrive at the Ice Temple. And the Ice Temple looks exactly like the Fire Temple later, and but it doesn't appear multiple times, unlike the Fire Temple, which does appear multiple times throughout the series. So when they lift up Zane to get the shurikens, they don't. They forgot to animate it, so it just looks like they teleport underneath him as he reaches for it. So they escape the Ice Temple, and then there's a montage where they get the rest of the weapons. But it shows again that the episode should have been longer. It's super rushed. And then they kind of relax a little bit, like, oh, we only have one more wet lap. What am I talking about? They only have one more weapon left to get. And because they're so confident, like overconfident and stuff, Sensei Wu does a very strange dance. So he shows his epic Fortnite dance moves, and a hallucination of Nia appears, and it leads Kai to the Fire Temple. And so when he gets to the Fire Temple, he sees in the middle is the Sword of Fire. Obviously, it's the Fire Temple. And Garmadon's plan to get the Fire Sword is surprisingly really good. So Kai is stupid. He takes the Fire Sword to cut Nia down because she's like hanging above lava with chains. And then he gets beat up by his own shadow because Garmadon's a shadow guy. I forgot to mention that. And the shadow people then pick up the sword. Which if he could pick up the sword with the shadow people, why didn't he just take it? He had this entire plan so that Kai would remove it, but he could have just taken it. Why didn't he? That's why he didn't need Nia. He didn't need Kai to take the sword for him. He could have just done it. Stupid. But Sensei Wu leaves the other three ninja instead of bringing them with him, and he saves Kai by beating them up with his own shadow in an actually pretty cool sequence because they don't actually have to animate anything. It's just 2D. And the skeletons take the golden weapons and tie up the other three ninja. Wu should have brought them and the weapons with him, but he's an idiot. And so Wu, to prevent the skeletons from bringing the other weapons back to the Fire Temple so that they could unite them all and give them to Garmadon, he instead goes to the underworld to separate them. Which is stupid. One, I think he kills himself to go to the underworld, which is really stupid. Also, there's a dragon there. But it only makes it easier for the skeletons to get there without the ninja following because they have devices that can let them go to the underworld. What is he thinking? What is happening? So anyway, the chase scene with the ninja following the skeletons' cars is pretty cool, actually. But Jay barely gets hit by Cole's scythe, not the elemental weapon, but just like a normal scythe. But then he's just like not able to talk, which is kind of stupid. But the skeletons leave. They couldn't stop them. They suck. So Kai somehow like tames the dragon off screen and somehow knows they can travel between realms. Like they give this stupid explanation that doesn't make any sense. I don't really care. And then Jay is a douchebag. And then they go to the underworld because they have dragons now. And now everyone's there. Yippee! So Wu goes to fight Garmadon in the underworld with the Sword of Fire, and I don't really like Garmadon's design very much. He looks cooler as Shadow, and I like that they added 2 more arms to him in Season 1. It just looks a lot cooler. Garmadon sends skeletons after him, and they make a bowling pin sound effect when Wu defeats them. That was kind of funny. I like it when Jay says, "Tornado of Creation!" But yeah, and a skeleton just commits suicide on screen as they are doing the Tornado of Creation, which they just like figure out how to do. And so they go to where Wu is, and there's a fight between Samukai and Wu, and it looks great, and definitely not really, really bad. So yeah, Samukai wins because he had 3 of the weapons and Wu had 1. So he takes the Sword of Fire, but then he's like, no, I'm not gonna give you the weapons, Garmadon. I'm tired of listening to you. And, but what was Garmadon's plan if Samukai did listen to him and give him the weapons? He would just, like, die? Because his plan all along was that Samukai would betray him, and then he would die opening a vortex so that he could leave the underworld to go to a different realm so he would be able to actually be able to access so he would actually be able to access the golden weapons like once he you know that he went into a realm which would make him able to actually wield the weapons instead of just being destroyed. And Sensei Wu, as he's going through the vortex, says the greatest line in history. He says, "Father would not want you to do this, brother." He's hilarious to me. He talks like that two times. It's two lines that he talks like that, and just comes out of nowhere. He just goes back to talking normally after that. Is he okay? I just don't know what happened. And then after that, Sensei says that the balance was restored, meaning it was imbalanced before. Does that mean that the Overlord was close to returning? Because if the balance goes more towards evil, then the Overlord goes is summoned to Ninjago. It reveals that in season 2. If they were, if it was imbalanced before, does that mean that the Overlord could have returned if they didn't stop him? Or, I mean, they didn't stop him, they kind of lost. Yeah, and then afterwards, Jay says a horrible line. He's just... oh boy, my turn. That's a where's my hug response. Yeah, besides that, Kaya's a buzzkill. And when the weapons are put together, they explode, later revealed to be exploding into a weird dragon thing and crystallized. Season 15? The end. That's how they end it. That episode's also a 6 out of 10. It also has some pretty bad stuff. Overall thoughts. The pilot episodes aren't very good. They lack a lot of what makes the early seasons so good, such as how well the music fits the scenes, the animation fitting the era of the show, and better character design. But at least it started a pretty dang good show, and it also had some elements I either ironically or unironically love. 6 out of 10 could be better.